So the big Warhammer preview and reveal show will be coming tomorrow, and Games Workshop's just confirmed that at least some of the reveals will be for Dark Angels. Let's talk about the reveals, the possibilities, hopes and dreams for the Dark Angels in particular, and the other possibilities for other 40k things and other game systems. Hello and welcome back to Warspecs Tactics, where today I thought I'd just revisit the big preview show that Games Workshop's going to be doing tomorrow, now that Games Workshop dropped a maybe slightly subtle, but not really that subtle hint, basically telling us at least one of the reveals that will be happening at that event. Looks like the Sons of the Lion are going to be getting some love. I talked about Games Workshop's reveal show the other week when they announced it. This is the one that's going to be coming from their World Champions of Warhammer and Grand Narrative type event. They previously hinted that there will be one mid-November, then they confirmed that it will be on the 17th and 18th, though it does depend on where you are around the world. For people in the USA, it'll be 10 PM Eastern Time or 7 PM Pacific Time, which translates to a moderately painful 3 AM time in the UK, so I guess it's going to be a late finish or an early finish tomorrow, depending on how you look at it for me. It's fitting in with their Twitch coverage of the overall event, but I feel like this one's probably the most interesting thing for Warhammer collectors around the world. Looks like they're genuinely revealing quite a lot of minis for quite a lot of game systems, and they showed us which systems they were going to be doing last week. Now we have confirmation that at least some of the 40k ones are going to be for the Dark Angels. These are the gaming systems that they're going to have reveals for, and it's really quite a lot of stuff. As I mentioned in the video last week, they're going to be having reveals for Warhammer 40k, Age of Sigmar, the Horus Heresy, the Old World, Underworld, Necromunda, and 40k Kill Team, which maybe overall implies that most of these systems won't be getting all that much of a reveal. I feel like if they've got quite so much stuff going on, then it means that they're just not going to have too much time to showcase ridiculous amounts of stuff for any one system, likely 40k included. We really don't know though, and it does look like it could be shaping up to be a fairly generous preview. They did manage to both showcase Lionel Johnson and 40k 10th edition in one of the ones earlier in the year, and that was in a reveal alongside other game systems as well. So it does show that they can be previewing a whole bunch of interesting stuff when they set their minds to it. The hint that Games Workshop dropped today though that confirms the Dark Angels is this one. Basically when they have these previews they do a countdown of days to go, just to build up some hype and give us some subtle hints as to what sort of things might be coming for the event. But in this case it arguably just isn't really all that subtle. We literally have a Dark Angels chapter logo in their iconic green plus some chains, and there's absolutely no way that they'd give us this sort of teaser without at least something coming for the forces of the Unforgiven. They did seem very much on the cards to get a release in the very near future in any case, but it looks like now's the time, and I'm really quite interested to see what they might get. So far the Dark Angels, like the other major Divergent chapters, haven't really seen an enormous amount of releases so far for the Primaris scale models. It's been a bit over 6 years since the Primaris range first started to drop. Games Workshop has understandably mainly focused on the more generic choices for Space Marines that everyone can use, but now perhaps they've got the Primaris range a bit more completed. It seems kind of likely that they're going to start moving on to the Divergent chapters in earnest. So far for the Dark Angels, we've had Primarch Lionel Johnson return last year, another enormous hint that Dark Angels are going to be getting something significant this year. And in the past we've also had Company Master Lazarus and the rather snazzy new sculpt of Grandmaster Azrael, which I really did quite like. That was revealed on Christmas Day last year. They've also had a few other bits and bobs like a unique lieutenant and an upgrade kit, but certainly nothing on the scale of armies like the Black Templars with what they got, entire reimagined squads like their Crusader squads and Sword Brethren, plus some generic characters and some upgrade kits as well. And I feel like when the other Divergent chapters players saw that, they were pretty much expecting that their chapters would get a similar sort of treatment at some point in the future, though as with Games Workshop it's always a question of when. If this did indeed represent the Dark Angels getting a proper Templar-style range refresh though, then I think we could assume some safe bets. First up, while they have had 3 characters redone, there's still plenty of them in older Firstborn-style models. In particular, Ezekiel, Asmodai, and Samael could all do with a resculpt, I think. I believe that Ezekiel still has an old metal model, one of the few remaining from Games Workshop at this point. The Black Templars got a very significant character release with I think 5 different models, including 2 generic options, and the inclusion of generic options in their release means that the Dark Angels have a reasonable chance of picking some of those up. They already had a unique lieutenant release, but it seems like there's a good chance that seeing as the Black Templars got a Castellan, the Dark Angels might get a unique company master. That would be really quite cool with a nice winged helm and some robes perhaps. And I think another really good pick that Dark Angels players would appreciate would be a unique sculpt for an interrogator chaplain. That could even be a new unit with a unique datasheet in the codex. Out of these guys, it looks like Asmodai could be the single most likely, given that he appeared in some brand new shiny artwork around the release of the Space Marine Codex, alongside, I believe it was Master Lazarus. Games Workshop often tends to do reimagined art of things when they have miniature releases coming out, and I feel like that definitely ups the likelihood of him versus all the rest, plus he is a pretty iconic character. Out of these, I maybe feel like Belial's in a bit of an unfortunate place, a slightly more recent miniature compared with the rest maybe, but he is going to be at the old Terminator scale, which might look a little bit out of place if he is marching into battle alongside some much bigger and chunkier Terminators, which again seem like they could be on the cards. Here's the recent Asmodai artwork. Quite a fun shot of him, I think. Would be fun to see him reincarnated for some maximal repentance. Otherwise, there's three other major things that they could do with the Dark Angels: Ravenwing, Deathwing, and Robed Marines. The Ravenwing currently have more unique plastic kits compared with the Deathwing, though I guess the Ravenwing Talonmaster will be a thing of the past in the new codex, given that the Landspeeder kit that it's based off has gone away. Otherwise, I'd probably see the Ravenwing Dark Talon and the Landspeeder Vengeance to be lower priority kits to update. They feel like their own thing and still are quite cool kits as good part of the range. But I feel like maybe an update for the Ravenwing Black Knights or Command Squad could really be an interesting choice, and have them based off the Primaris Outrider scale rather than the Firstborn Bikers, which again have now gone. I feel like if they get anything for the Ravenwing in a release, then that'd be the single most likely. They probably wouldn't really need to do anything different to the kit in terms of options. It'd be quite nice to have some Primaris scale bikers with Plasma Talons and Corvus Hammers though. Otherwise, if they did go for Dark Angels in a big way, the Deathwing would be the other major wing of the army that they could update. Currently, they again have just the one kit that can make the standard Terminators, Command Squad, or Deathwing Knights, and it maybe was a little bit unclear as to what they really do with these, given that they were rolling out Primaris Marines until they released the new and upscaled Terminators. Now the generic ones of those are out, it does pave the way for the Command Squad and the Knights to go to the same scale. And Games Workshop did drop what sounded like a subtle hint for other things based on the Terminator design, saying that there was another set of miniatures coming out that was based on the same armor archetype. They could have been talking about Assault Terminators, but honestly I thought they were talking about the Deathwing Knights or Command Squad. That did seem more likely to me. I guess if they went very heavy on the Terminator releases, we might even get other Space Marine releases like an updated Terminator Assault Squad, something that was maybe a bit of a shame that they didn't update at the same time as the regular Terminators alongside Codex Space Marines. Otherwise, if they are doing the Dark Angels release properly, I feel like they'd win a lot of points by getting us some Robed Space Marine bodies. Currently, Games Workshop still have the Venerable Company Veterans kit for the Dark Angels on their web store, 5 Firstborn Marines with some fun war gear choices, but more importantly the iconic Dark Angels robed bodies and helmets. I feel like a multi-part kit with some flexibility would be really quite nice to add to Primaris Marines. I think it is quite fun, the idea of just including the odd robed body amongst the other ranks of other Space Marines of different denominations, just to tie the overall force together and give it a bit more of a Dark Angels feel. They could do this either via some Primaris Company veteran type things, maybe similar to the Black Templar Sword Brethren perhaps. I guess that would come with its own datasheet though. Or perhaps just be present on an upgraded upgrade kit, perhaps similar to the Black Templar one where they gave us other options, like various different relics of the chapter and different war gear options for their neophytes on that one. Finally, when talking about Dark Angels, it does make me wonder if they're ever going to do something with the Fallen. Seems like in the lore they've been building up to a release of Luther for really quite a long time now, and the ancient enemy of Lionel Johnson has escaped from the Rock in the not too distant past in 40k lore, and is presumably amassing an army of Fallen somewhere out there in the galaxy, which probably isn't good news for the Unforgiven. I guess he wouldn't be appearing in a Dark Angels codex, might be more likely to turn up alongside Chaos Marines if Games Workshop go that way at some point in the future. Seems that that's a pretty exciting big bad that they could release at some point in the future. It would be very cool to see Games Workshop realise something proper for the Fallen, as aside from Cypher here, a lot of their rules support and just general focus in the game has rather fallen away. For this reveal though, it's kind of hard to say whether they're actually going to go the whole hog and give us a big range reveal. I guess if it is a range that's coming early on in spring, then it could be possible. I believe at this sort of time last year we got big reveals for things like the Astra Militarum and World Eaters range, which came out late January and February. We could get a full range reveal for the Dark Angels, or we could just get a couple of character teasers or something like that. Even seeing something like an updated Asmodai would be cool though. I think it does make them likely that the Dark Angels are going to be odds on to be one of the first codexes of spring. There are plenty more like Custodies, Chaos Marines and Orcs on the way, but if they're getting previews now, then it probably means that they're coming before the rest. Beyond Dark Angels, just to talk about the other possibilities that I mentioned in the video last week though, there's definitely the chance for more Necron goodness on the way. Could be another character like Orican the Diviner, given that they dropped pretty big hints for him in previous articles. I feel like either him or Trazyn the Infinite would be real crowd pleasers in terms of the models from the lore. The Necrons do have a few other possibilities like upgraded Locust Destroyers, or maybe new models for the Deceiver or the Nightbringer. I feel like they will be done at some stage and will be pretty spectacular when they arrive. Then beyond Dark Angels, there's the other Spring 40k codexes coming out: Custodies, Orcs, Chaos Marines, and Tau. Custodies, I think I'd really like to see a few more of their Forge World style units being done in plastic, even if they were sort of near enough analogues like unique Dreadnoughts or unique Grav tanks. It is just perhaps a bit sad how much easier it is to get your hands on the infantry than the Dreadnoughts and tanks at the moment, given Forge World prices. Otherwise, for Orcs, they could do other characters like Boss Zagstruck. Tank Busters would be high on the wish list as well, I think. Chaos Marines had Bikers rumoured in the past, plus there's plenty of other options like new Noise Marines, Lucius the Eternal, or a few other character miniatures. For the Tau, we definitely know that they're going to be getting a crew tox. Seems possible they could be doing the auxiliaries in a bit more style this time, perhaps having a new generic crew squad that isn't just the Farstalker Kimband, and some Vespid would be quite nice to replace as their models have been ancient for a while now. And as always, there's the possibility for more Space Marines. Some of the most telling things for the Space Marines are things like Cato Sicarius and Pedro Cantor. They've still had the rules included in the codex despite having firstborn miniatures, and Cato Sicarius was seen in art before as a Primaris. They do feel like quite nice miniatures they could just release at any time. Otherwise, we know World Eaters and Votan will be getting plenty more miniatures when their codexes drop, but given that they're not happening till at least summer, I feel like we'll see other things before then. Otherwise, still potentially interesting stuff from the other game systems. As I mentioned last time, in Horus Heresy, they've teased that there's going to be a mystery army release. Seems likely that to tie in with Legions Imperialis, it could be the Solo Auxilia. Maybe the other options could be Custodes or some Adeptus Mechanicus with some Automata. I think for 40k purposes, I would be most interested if it was Custodes and they redid a bunch of the line in plastic. That would be seriously helpful for Custodes players collecting in 40k. Kill Team's also getting another release, despite them not having got round to releasing Kill Team Salvation. That was revealed at the last reveal show, with the Striking Scorpions facing off against the as yet unreleased Space Marine Scout Squads. I feel like they're both kits where Eldar and Space Marine players are really looking forward to getting their hands on those, so hopefully they don't delay that too much longer, and they'll likely be sticking with the same theme of the 40k but on the sea terrain set. Kill Team's been pretty great for new 40k releases and updates, feeling that they just take a bit more time to dig into some slightly more obscure kits that Games Workshop don't often get round to doing properly. Lots of niche stuff within 40k, such as the Navy Breachers, Exaction Squads, and Rogue Traders and things, and they don't really seem to be tied to the setting that they're released in at all, so we could basically get anything. As mentioned in the video last week, it seems that Mr. Valrak mentioned that there might be a box of Night Lords versus Mandrakes. I think both of those again would be really quite fun for the collectors of those factions. I feel like Games Workshop really doesn't give the Traitor Legions enough love in the Warhammer 40k setting, leaving that pretty much entirely to expensive resin in Heresy, and a Kill Team seems like a pretty excellent way to give the faction some proper love. I hope if they do it they actually manage to make the miniatures quite good though, and it doesn't just wind up being a somewhat sad upgrade sprue. Mandrakes just feel like a very necessary release for the Drukhari. Currently they really are a faction with problems. 4 units out of their somewhat medium-sized unit pool are out of production, being resin kits, and Mandrakes are one of them. A plastic reimagination of those I think would be very sensible. Finally, they also teased that there'd be some stuff for the Age of Sigmar, and I must admit I didn't really know what the teaser was talking about in the last video that I made, but a couple of you corrected me down in the comments to tell me that it was definitely the Flesh Eater Courts that this was talking about. I must admit I'm far less clued up about Age of Sigmar than 40k. Seems like the mad ghouls who are playing at court will be getting some more miniatures coming out, and Games Workshop did tease this absolutely bonkers ghoul miniature with a whole load of guts making up his wig, as a bit of a prelude to what I suppose is going to be the main event, so you'll get far more miniatures than this. I'm not sure I'd fancy being on trial with this guy presiding. In any case, let me know what you're hoping for and what you'd like to see coming up in the reveal show. Do you reckon that we'll see much good stuff for the Dark Angels, or are they just going to give us a tease of what's to come? And what are your hopes and fears for their release wave if we get one? I'll certainly be covering the reveals in full, so feel free to subscribe to Auspex Tactics if you'd like to see that. Sounds like it's going to be a very late night or early morning for me. Finally, if you have been enjoying all the videos on the channel and you'd like to keep them coming, I would just like to mention that Auspex Tactics does have a Patreon page as well, and you can find that linked in the video description down below. Channel patrons do get a fair few advantages, seeing certain videos early, regular votes to see what sort of things come next on the channel, and automatic entry into the regular prize giveaways with a chance to win some big model kits each month. If any of that sounds good to you or you'd just like to help support, the link is down in the video description. In any case, a massive thank you for listening, and I'll hope to see you guys next time.